Hello, everybody, and welcome to Decoding the WSL, and an episode that's a little different to normal because it's not our sort of weekly ones. Obviously, the season is done, but that therefore means it is the perfect time to go through our team of the season. So we're going to be going through, well, each of ours. I'm going to be going through mine, and we've also got Jacob Bernstein doing his as well. Jacob, how are you doing?
Hello. Yes, I'm doing well, thank you. It's nice to be on video. We've obviously got the Spurs shirts and Arsenal shirts because whilst the domestic season whilst the domestic season is over for overall, there's still something to play for both Spurs and Arsenal. Obviously, Spurs men have got the Europa League final in 2 days' time as of recording, and Arsenal women have got the Champions League final this weekend. So yeah, still stuff to play for despite the season being over.
Yeah, the season is not fully over just yet. The WSL season obviously is, but yeah, we thought we'd get our biases, at least visually, out of the way. Obviously, if you're listening on Spotify, you won't have seen, or if I can't get the video to work, you also won't have seen, but at least know that we've at least tried to do the video, and hopefully you can see us. But yeah, future Sam will figure that out when he's trying to put it all together. But yeah, we're going to go through our teams of the season today. So we don't know who each other have put at all. But we know we've gone similar formations, so we'll go through in the same kind of route as we go. But yeah, we're going to go through position by position, say who we picked and why, and maybe some of the other players that didn't quite make the cut. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's start with the goalkeeper, obviously. I think for me, there were probably four that I was considering. They were, the top teams, keepers. So Chelsea with Hannah Hampton, Arsenal with Daphne Van Domselaar, not Man City, because I think they changed too much, but Fallon Joyce at Man United. But then also Courtney Brosnan. They were very much my sort of four as a shortlist to pick through. What about you?
Yeah, me too. I was between three. It was Fallon Joyce, Courtney Brosnan, and Hannah Hampton. I think, yeah, if I had gone for a fourth, it would have been Daphne Van Domselaar. Do you want me to reveal who my keeper was, or do you want to go
Go for it.
first?
Who have you gone for?
I've gone for Fallon Joyce. I think the stats speak for themselves. I think she's been absolutely brilliant all season. United conceded 16 goals over the course of the season, kept 13 clean sheets, which was the joint most with Chelsea. Obviously, Fallon Joyce and Hannah Hampton both shared the Golden Glove, which made it a tough choice. But yeah, I think Fallon Joyce has been so impressive. Obviously, Mary Earp's leaving in the summer. Tough to fill her shoes, but I think Fallon Joyce has done it unbelievably. She's actually got the most goals prevented in the league. So she's prevented 6.8 goals more than the XG against would suggest. That's 22.8 post-shot XG, and she's conceded 16. She's played every minute of the WSL season for United. I think one potential dampener on United's and Fallon Joyce's season is perhaps the ending of the last three games. Obviously, losing to Chelsea in a game that handed Chelsea the title, drawing to City and conceding 2, although that game did help them get Champions League football. And then on the final day, losing 4-3 to Arsenal. United conceded 8 of the goals they conceded, so that's like half the goals they conceded in those last 3 matches. But to put into perspective how good their defensive record was against the other teams that weren't Arsenal, Chelsea and City, they only conceded 5 goals against the rest of the teams, which is just incredible. I think that's 16 games against non-big 3 sides, and they conceded 5 goals, which is just incredible. So yeah, Fallon Joyce for me.
Yeah, Fallon Joyce was mine as well. And to be honest, for a lot of the same reasons, we're both obviously very stat and data and analytics based people. So yeah, I've made a lot of the same notes, to be honest, in mine. Same number of clean sheets as Hannah Hampton. Did concede more goals than Hannah Hampton, but faced a lot more post-shot XG or XG on target. You might see somewhere else. I did note as well that teams needed an average of 1.43 post-shot XG to score 1 goal against her, which obviously on average you need 1 to score 1. So yeah, she was way above I think the other keepers in the league, partly because she was a bit busier than the other keepers at the top, like busier than Hannah Hampton anyway. And I think probably busier than Daphne Van Domselaar as well. Courtney Brosnan, like I mentioned, was another one in there because she's just made so many saves. She's been so busy, but also so good. But yeah, Fallon Tullis-Joyce takes it for me as well. So we've both got the same keeper to start with. Let's move on to the back line. I know we've both got a back four. So let's start on the left. Who have you gone for?
I've gone at left back, Sandy Baltimore. I am coming off the back of having just been to the FA Cup final yesterday. I had put Baltimore in before yesterday's game, and obviously yesterday's game isn't in the WSL, but I've just got to speak on her because she was so good yesterday. Obviously, she played in a more advanced role as a bit more of a winger instead of where we've seen her at left back, but she honestly single-handedly won Chelsea the game and secured the treble for them. 2 goals for Baltimore and an assist was such a complete performance. And then in regard to the WSL season, she was in the 99th percentile for progressive carries with 4.36 per 90. This is compared to WSL fullbacks. She had 1.86 successful take-ons per 90 compared to WSL fullbacks again. She was in the 96th percentile for crosses, so 5.49 per 90. And she recorded 4 goals and 3 assists, putting her in the 99th percentile for XG for fullbacks. I know there should maybe be a focus on defending as well, which is why I put the first few stats in, but also obviously the modern fullback is a lot more progressive, a lot more attacking, so I've got to throw in the attacking stats as well. But yeah, such an impressive season for Sandy Baltimore joining over the summer. I had in kind of my other choices were Katie McCabe was an option that I had in, but yeah, I ended up going for Sandy Baltimore. What about you, Sam?
So Baltimore was on. I had, again, for this one, a list of 4 players for left back. Baltimore was one of them. Obviously not traditionally a left back before joining Chelsea, but yeah, she certainly fit in really well in that position. I had Gabby George on that list as well. I had Sarah Holmgard. I think she's been fantastic at Everton again. But mine does go to Katie McCabe. I think she's just so good going forward and has been so important for Arsenal. She's had the most key passes in the league, which is a really impressive stat for a left back. Normally, you'd regard that for a winger, maybe an attacking midfielder, that kind of position. So to be able to do that from left back is really impressive. And she's also, which are kind of 2 stats that go together, she has accumulated the most expected assisted goals in the process. She was also one of the top 3 players in the league for progressive passes, shot creating actions, and goal creating actions. So going forward, she was so impressive. But I think one of the other parts I think is really important is she didn't defensively have that many defensive stats that sort of bulk out her defensive performance, but I think showing how important she is to Arsenal is her on-pitch goals and on-pitch goal difference. So on-pitch goal difference is a team's goal difference while a specific player is on the pitch. For Arsenal, she had a plus 30 goal difference and a plus 26.5 expected goal difference. That latter, the 26.5, the only 2 players in the league that were better than her were both Chelsea players. So outside of, well, only 2 Chelsea players as well that were so far ahead of everyone else in terms of points in the league, Katie McCabe made such an impact. She didn't miss too much time, but yeah, I think you can tell by the time that she did miss that it made an impact to Arsenal. And you can have I probably wouldn't agree with it, but you could have an argument to say that she was, outside of Chelsea, probably one of the most important players in the league. So yeah, I thought she was a bit of a shoo-in at left back, but it's all about opinions. That's why we've gone for 2 separate teams. Let's go over to the centre back. So I think, I don't know, have you done like a left and a right, or have you just done 2 centre backs?
I've just done 2 centre backs, but why don't you go first? Who are your centre backs, Sam?
Yeah, so I'll just go for both of them. So I've done a left and a right just because it happened to be the 2 centre backs that I thought made the cut. One generally played on the left, one generally played on the right. The one on the left I've gone for is Millie Bright. I think she was just incredibly important for Chelsea. Obviously, she's captained them this season to a record-breaking season, winning the league by 12 points, which is massive, a record. She was the league's best one-on-one defender. She tackled 82% of dribblers that came her way. She was also in the top 10 in the league for interceptions and clearances. She won 50 aerial duels as well, which is the 3rd most in the league and the most for defenders. So yeah, I think she's been very important. The on-pitch goal difference, like I just mentioned for Katie McCabe, Millie Bright was number one in the league. She was plus 43. So they scored 43 more goals than they conceded while she was on the pitch. Which, yeah, when you've got a team like Chelsea that are that high up the table, scoring that many goals and beating everyone by at least a goal or two in pretty much every game. Obviously, they've never lost, or they've never lost this season. Yeah, it's kind of unsurprising. I think she's a big part of why they've been so good. Alongside her, I've gone for another English defender. In fact, I actually had four as a shortlist again. I haven't done four for every position, but did have four again. And they were all English. So I had Millie Bright. The other two that I had on my list that didn't make the cut were Millie Turner and Leah Williamson. And that is because Laetitia is the person I've gone alongside. I think she's only 22, obviously, which you seem to forget because she hasn't missed a WSL game for the last 5 seasons. Obviously, 3 of those at Man United. And in her 3rd season, she's become captain as well, taking over from Katie Zellum. She was the youngest player to play every minute in the WSL this season. And yeah, was in sort of in that top bracket among WSL centre-backs for long passes per 90, goal creating actions per 90, ball recoveries per 90, passes into the box per 90, just showing that she's on the ball, is making a really good impact, but also has that recoveries. So does have some good defensive qualities to her as well. So yeah, really important in attack and defence. And yeah, 2 captains of teams that were qualifying for the Champions League this or next season. Yeah, so Bright and Laetitia are mine. Who have you gone for?
Well, I've also gone for Millie Bright and Maya Letitia. Yeah, in terms of a start for a team of the season, on the whole, I feel like we've got a lot of agreement. But yeah, for a lot of the same reasons as you, I've put the 2 of them in. One of the things that I wanted to highlight, which I on the whole have done for both my goalie and centre back, is I think availability is such an underrated asset. It's something, not that I'm tailoring it back to Spurs, but it's something that I've just been so impressed by Molly Bartrip, who, like my Letitia, also played every outfield minute, and I think they were the only 2 outfield players to do so. So yeah, for centre back, I've gone Maya Letitia and Millie Bright because of their availability. As we said, Maya Letitia has played every single minute of the WSL season. Millie Bright had 21 out of 22 starts. I think the only game she didn't start was their penultimate game against Spurs. Probably because they had already won the league, would be my guess, and they decided to rest her for that game. But yeah, my list is a 97th percentile for ball recoveries per 90 compared to WSL defenders. And yeah, Millie Bright, I've got a couple of similar stats to you, Sam. She was in the 92nd percentile for aerials 1 per 90. She had a 94.6% medium pass completion rate, which was the 4th most outfield players in the WSL. I also had not too dissimilar players from you on my shortlist. Millie Turner was there. I also put Natalie Bjorn there, who I've seen in quite a lot of people's team of the seasons. I think she won one of Chelsea's Player of the Season awards as well. But I think just because of availability, I think Bjorn started just over half of Chelsea's games this season. That's why I've gone for Millie Bright.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think Bjorn is one that was. I don't know if I'd necessarily put her in like contention for being in my team of the season personally, but I think she's definitely been a very underrated player. She was already a good player. There's a reason Chelsea wanted to buy her, but and I think she's a solid option. She's a solid like squad option and has been very good for Chelsea this season. But yeah, I don't think she's quite at that next level that people like Bright and Laetitia are for me. Okay, completing the back 4 then. I'm going to go through my shortlist and then I want to know who you've picked before I say who I've picked. But I had a shortlist of 4 again. I promise it's not 4 every time. The midfield shortlist is way longer. But my 4 were basically the 4 for the top 4. So Lucy Bronze at Chelsea, Emily Fox at Arsenal, Jade Riviere at Man United, and Kirsten Kasperai at City. And this is probably the position where I was like closest to picking, like to not knowing who to pick, because I think all 4 could have like deservedly had an inclusion in this, and I wouldn't have, if you've said one of those 4, for example, I'd just be like, yeah, okay, doesn't really matter who it is. I'm not going to disagree with you and see it as a silly answer. But yeah, who have you gone for?
I've gone for Lucy Bronze as my choice. it feels like we haven't had much variety in the defence, but it shouldn't come as a surprise that, well, for my team, I've picked three defenders from Chelsea and two from United. I mean, they were the best two defenders in the league. But yeah, Lucy Bronze, such an impressive season. Again, in terms of stats, she was in the 99th percentile for interceptions 1 per 90. That's compared to WSL defenders. She was in the 96th percentile for both aerials 1 per 90 and 96th percentile for progressive passes per 90. She obviously, the Chelsea title seemed inevitable as the season went on, but it was nice that Lucy Bronze got that goal against United in the third last match day to secure them the title. As like you, Sam, I had a similar shortlist. I think Jada Riviere has been fantastic, and she probably would have been second on my list. And then Kirsten Kasparek, Emily Fox, and then I have to shout out Ella Morris because I think she's been absolutely fantastic for Spurs this season. We signed her in the summer. She sustained an MCL injury and kind of came back towards the start of the year and has been such a standout player in what's been such a poor second half of the season for us. And I'm so glad that she's got rewarded for it because she got called up to the Lionesses for their upcoming UEFA Women's Nations League games. So hopefully there can be a spot for her in the upcoming Euro squad. But yeah, I think it's such a big reward for her performances this season.
Yeah, I think Ella Morris is a great shout as a sort of a fifth player, and I think I would be unsurprised to see Ella Morris in the England squad when it gets to the Euros. I really wouldn't be surprised to see her there, and I also wouldn't be surprised to see her in 2-3 years' time being England starting right back, but also be like being included in these team of the seasons like consistently. But I have actually gone for the same as you. I've also gone for Lucy Bronze. I think there was a lot of rumours at the end of last season when obviously Lyon faced Barcelona, and it was everyone kind of knew that Bompastor was coming to Chelsea, and there was rumours of her trying to get Lucy Bronze to come and join her. And yeah, you can see if you look at Lucy Bronze's heat map, it is so red, but all the way down the right hand side of the pitch. She obviously does her defensive duties. She does them very well, but she's so athletic that she gets up and down the pitch so much. And I don't have the numbers for it, but I think things like her sprints and the number of like high pressures that she puts on would be really high. But yeah, she was the league's best player for touches per 90 across all fullbacks, which I think shows how important she's been for, let's be honest, the best team in the league. One of the best teams the league has seen for quite some time as well. But yeah, she's got that mix of defensive and attacking duties. She was second most for interceptions in the league, and was also in the top 10 for attacking metrics like progressive passes, shot creating actions, and aerial duels won. And yeah, she's 33 now, but she's most certainly not past it. She's still maybe not quite in her prime, but still good enough to be, I think, the best right back in the league this season. Let's move on to the midfield. So I've gone for a 4-2-3-1. You've gone for a 4-3-3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say my two like holding midfielders, and then I'll let you go through the others, and then I'll do my attacking midfielder after. So for the holding midfielders, I had quite a list that I sort of looked at. I sort of went through the teams to do this whole team of the season. Went through the teams one by one. I was like, okay, who would actually sort of deserve a place in the squad, potentially at least be on the shortlist. In midfield, I had Erin Cuthbert, Grace Clinton, Hayashi, Gori, Kim Little, Caldente, Ruby Mace, Syoka Nuskin, Yui Hasegawa. So not 4 players this time. I've gone for loads. But my two in like holding midfield, I've gone for Erin Cuthbert. I think she's been one of the best players in the league this season. Of players that made more than 5 appearances this season, she had the most points per game at 2.89, which is obviously not far off perfect record. But I think her best qualities aren't necessarily the quantitative ones, so they're not necessarily the ones that we can make stats about, but it's her sort of like tenacity and her work ethic that really sort of help out, and her attitude and stuff like that really pushes not just Chelsea, not just her, but her teammates to become better on the pitch as well. So yeah, Erin Cuthbert goes in for me, and then alongside her, I've got the player that I think would be my player of the season, and it's Mariona Caldente. We knew when she came to Arsenal in the summer that it was a really big statement signing. She was obviously very, very good at Barcelona. And there was a lot of rumours that this was kind of like Arsenal had a decision basically between Miedemar and Caldente. Caldente was the route they went down, getting rid of the league's top scorer, Arsenal's top scorer, I think, and a player that's basically a club legend in Viv Miedemar is a big decision. And if you're going to do that, you've got to replace her with someone good. And Arsenal really did that. So Maria Caldente was in the top 10 for both goals and assists in the WSL this season. 14 goal involvements, only one behind the league best. She was the only player to get triple figures for shot creating actions. She had the most progressive passes in the league, and her defensive contributions were there as well. She had some of the best numbers in the league for blocks, for tackles won, and for dribblers tackled. So she was just a bit of an all-round package this season. And although because she kind of started out as played a bit on the wing, they played her a bit in the 10, but then she's sort of been in that double pivot that Arsenal have and has settled in perfectly and has been really important and will be really important in the Champions League final that's coming up this weekend. So yeah, Cuthbert and Caldente are my two in like my 4-2-3-1. I know you've gone for a bit more of like a flatter three in midfield. So who have you gone for?
I have, but I promise you, Sam and I have not spoken about our team in the season before.
You gone for the same?
I've gone for both Cuthbert and Caldente, and I haven't decided like who plays where, because they're my third midfielder, who you may have as well, but I don't know, you may play her as a bit more of an 8 or a 10, however you want to see it. Is Grace Clinton. So I'll speak on the three of them now. But yeah, I've got a lot to say about Grace Clinton because I've been so impressed by her.
Well, I say I don't have Grace Clinton as my.
Okay, we've got a
Cam, so you can talk about Grace Clinton to your heart's content.
But yeah, on Erin Cuthbert, I mean, she got Chelsea's Player of the Season, so I mean, she has been so good and has to get in the team. Again, it's sometimes quite hard to quantify and have statistics for those like midfielders who do more of the dirty work, but there are some really impressive stats here. So she was in the 91st percentile for tackles per 90, 89th percentile for interceptions per 90. She had a 94.4% short passing completion, which was in the 98th percentile in the WSL, and she was in the 97th percentile for tackles per 90. Erin Cuthbert had to get in there for me. On Mariana Caldente, 9 goals, 5 assists, so impressive. From 6.3 XG, she got her 9 goals, so it is a 2.7 XG overachiever. Whilst it is a WSL team of the season, she has also been ridiculously impressive in the Champions League as well, so it's important to speak about that, although that obviously doesn't factor in here, but it does factor in the fact that how impressive Caldente has been and the fact that she has been so good for Arsenal. 7 goals and 2 assists in the UCL, which means she's got 23 goal contributions across the WSL and the Champions League. She was also named the WSL Player of the Season. So yeah, I think Caldente and Cuthbert were definitely nail-ons for me. And yeah, thirdly, I've gone for Grace Clinton. Obviously, having watched her last season on loan at Spurs, I was so impressed by her, and she made us tick as a team. She was so influential, and you almost saw that when you strip out both Clinton and I guess Celine Bizet as well, you see that influence that they both had on the Spurs team. I think Clinton's role has changed quite a lot for United compared to Spurs. Kind of last season at Spurs, I kind of associated Grace Clinton a lot more as like kind of picking the ball up from deep, driving, dribbling, and more of like a progressive carrier. And I kind of looked into the stats and it did prove it. I think she at Spurs, she recorded 60 progressive carries and 96 progressive passes over the course of the season, and that's compared to 21 progressive carries and 59 progressive passes this season. So that really shows the like change in her role. She's become a lot more of like a goal scorer, I guess, than a creator. She scored 8 goals this season, an improvement on 4 from last season. She had 5.4 XG, so it was an overachiever by 2.6. And 3 of her 8 goals in the season were headed, which I wouldn't associate too much with Grace Clinton, but I think it speaks more to the way United play. I think, especially down the right with Jada Riviere and Celine Bizet, who just cross the ball so much, and you see the impact with Grace Clinton's goals, but also with Elizabeth Turland's headed goals as well. Whilst Grace Clinton surprisingly didn't record any assists this season, she did record 2.8 expected assists. So again, maybe that speaks to the fact that United maybe don't play down the middle as much and maybe play on the wings more. But in terms of strong stats for Grace, 99th percentile for through balls per 90 and 99th percentile for tackles and tackles won per 90. So that really shows her strength in midfield. Sam, who have you gone for in your cam and also two wingers?
So my cam position, I've gone for someone that's maybe not played cam all the time, but I've put her in this position because she has played there in the league this season, even if it's not her most common position. But I put Alessia Russo because I think she is very good in that position, so I'm allowed to put her in there. I'm taking that. But obviously, she's been fantastic at Arsenal. She was the joint top scorer in the league this season. I think she's been incredibly important as a kind of focal striker when she's played there, but also when she's dropped in. Those times when someone like Stina Blackstenius is on the pitch as well. Stina needs to be that main forward, and Russo can then drop in and show her a bit more of the creativity rather than just the goal scoring. She scored some really important goals in the league this season. Obviously, has scored a lot of them in total. So I thought she was a shoe-in for the team. I haven't put her at striker because there was someone else I wanted to put that I felt I couldn't put anywhere else. But I'll come to that later. But yeah, Alessia Russo gets in at the sort of cam position for me. Wingers. So you've got a right and a left wing as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on the right first. So on the right, I was considering putting in Olivia Smith. I think she's had a really good season, but someone that was just slightly better for me. And if you've listened to the pod that I put out, I think it came out today as we record, that I did with Izzy about Fantasy WSL, you'll be very surprised that I put this player in because I could not remember her name, or I couldn't remember how good she'd been anyway, but it's Mary Fowler. I think she has been someone that she started the season not being a main player for City. In the first two games of the season, she played a combined 31 minutes. There were just other players ahead of her in the pecking order. Obviously, she can kind of play anywhere across the front four, but when you've got Jill Roord and you've got Viv Miedemar and Bunny Shaw and Jess Park and Lauren Hemp, there's only so many places on the pitch that you can fit people in. But they obviously had a lot of injuries, and Man City needed Mary Fowler to step up, get into the starting lineup, and she didn't just fill in the numbers. She really performed. She registered 7 assists, more than she did last season, and only 1 fewer than the league's best. She also scored 6 goals as well as her 7 assists, so 13 goal involvements, the most of any Man City player, which I think for someone that, like I say, only played 31 minutes in the first 2 games, to have the joint most goal involvements for your team, and only 2 less than the league's best, is really good. She had really high numbers, especially for those creativity metrics. So expected assisted goals, key passes, shot creating actions, goal creating actions. And as well as, as well as those numbers being really good and her ability to get so many goal involvements, I think when she did it is just as important, because if you're getting 7 assists and 6 goals, but Bunny Shaw's also banging them in the same games, and so is Viv Miedemar, and so is Jess Park, etc., then, that's great, but the goals aren't that important. But she stepped up when Man City needed someone because their firepower was all injured, basically. So, I think not just the quality of her, but when she showed that quality, and I imagine the pressure she was under, because if she didn't do it, who else was going to do it at that point? So, Mary Fowler gets in for me at right wing.
Yeah, well, I've gone Mary Fowler.
No, you haven't.
We need more contrast in our teams. For very similar reasons to you. 6 goals from 3.9 xg, 7 assists. with that being the second most, and second most assists per 90 as well. I've been so impressed with Mary Fowler over the course of the season. Obviously, she sustained an ACL injury towards the back of the season, which is so gutting. And we always see we've seen so many ACL injuries over the course of the season. But Mary Fowler's young, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how she'll bounce back from that, maybe towards the back end of next season. I think she's such an exciting talent, and I found the attack, or the front three, probably the hardest positions to do in this team of the season, because I think whilst you can debate a lot of the defense, I think it's evident that both United and Chelsea had such strength in defense that the players almost pick themselves, whereas I think a lot of the attacking players, especially from the lower sides, kind of you could put an argument for them going in. I had Olivia Smith as well in my nominees. Have a lot of attacking players, and I just didn't know how to quite fit them. But yeah, it was Mary Fowler for me.
Yeah, that was part of the reason why I put Leslie Russo at cam, because I just had so many players. But I also thought if I went for like a 4-4-2 and put Russo up front, then Fowler and, well, my left winger seemed to be a bit too deep and have too much defensively going on. So yeah, we fit it in. Over to the left wing then. I had 2 on my shortlist, but I'm going to let you go first because I'm intrigued to see if either of the people on my shortlist is who you've gone for.
Well, what I kind of struggled-ish, because basically in my initial draft for the team of the season, there were 2 players that I left out, and it was Vivian Asseyi and Elizabeth Turland, and I was looking at my team of the season. I was like, how can I leave out 2 players that have got the most joint most goal involvements in the league? So I did some adjusting, and I put Vivian Asseyi at left wing. I think, she's the only player that isn't from a top 4 side in my team. Very impressive season from Vivian Asseyi. 9 goals and 6 assists, getting her 15 goal contributions is so impressive. I'll get to why I put her instead of someone else when we get to the striker. 9 goals from 5.4 XG. That's a lot of that's 4.6 overachieving. 3.6 overachieving. Joint most goal and assist in WSL. She scored in 8 separate games against 6 separate opponents, which is also important when considering kind of the impact of people's goals and assists. And she was the 3rd XG overachiever in the WSL. So impressive for Vivian Asseyi. And we've spoken over the last couple of weeks of just how impressive the West Ham attack has been, especially during the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think we've given a lot of plaudits we are the people giving it, but to West Ham and especially Shakira Martinez, and how much she's hit the ground running, scoring so many goals since she joined in January. But my only player outside the top 4 in my 11 is Viv Asseyi. She is in at left wing for me, like you say, 15 goal involvements. It was I think she's been the best player in the league outside the top 4 teams. It was easy for me to include her in the side, to be honest. The only other player I considered putting in was Lauren Hemp. I know she didn't play that much this season because of injury, but when she did play, she was so good. She didn't play much, and she still got the most assists in the league with 8, more than any other player. It's not like she was joint most; she was just outright most. I did give it to Viv Asseyi as well. I've got the same stats written down, so I won't go over them again.
Too similar. We need to be more different. We've got all the same players, the same stats.
I did note down as well that, similar to Caldente, actually, that her defensive importance needs to be noticed as well, because she was one of the league's top 10 players for both tackles won and blocks as well. So it's not just her forward capabilities. The other thing I noticed when I was doing a bit of research into sort of who I'm going to put in these positions and why, and this isn't anything to do with why I put her in this position, I just thought this was a really interesting stat, that Viv Asseyi was the most fouled player and the player to commit the most fouls in the WSL season. But she did that this season, the season before, and the season before that. So all 3 seasons that she's been in the WSL, she has been the player that committed the most fouls and the player that drew the most fouls. So I thought that was quite impressive because I don't think most players can do that if they tried, but she seems to just be involved with fouls all the time. But yeah, I think it goes some way to say as well that we've obviously said a lot of good things about West Ham, but let's not forget they did still finish ninth. But she was so good in that side, and I think West Ham are probably the side with the to stay with our why not, let's go all in, to stay with our stats nerding, with the highest standard deviation and quality within their side. I think they've got some really good players and some players that aren't so good in their starting 11. And I think if they replace those, I don't know, half the 11 or something that aren't that good, they're going to be such a force next season and will be, I think, the latest team to finish the best of the rest. Okay, so we've only got one more player each, right? Just the striker.
Yeah.
So I had 4 strikers on my list. So I had Beth England, I had Shakira Martinez, I had Bunny Shaw, and I had Elizabeth Turland, and I've gone for one of them. I might have given it away a little bit by saying Asay was my only one outside the top 4. So you can probably narrow it down a bit, but who have you gone for?
I'll just give some honourable mentions as well, because I had quite a lot of honourable mentions in the kind of attacking positions, not just as a striker as well. My honourable mentions were Alessia Russo, Shakira Martinez again. It's not too similar from you. Bunny Shaw, Elizabeth Turland, and then a couple of others, Nikita Paris, Fran Kirby, Aggie Beaver-Jones, and Rachel Daly. I honestly think like one of Fran Kirby or Nikita Paris could have very easily gotten into the team if Brighton had sustained their early season form. I think it could have been, it would have been a guarantee. But obviously,
I think if we did this at Christmas, I think there wouldn't be quite so much reliance on the top 4 teams. I think Brighton, would have had at least 1, if not 2, players in there.
Agreed. But yeah, I've gone for as my striker Alessia Russo. So your number 10 is my striker. The top goal scorer. I had to put one of Alessia Russo or Bunny Shaw in, I think, because they were the Golden Boot winners. 12 goals from 9.5 xG. Despite she was the top scorer in the WSL, and she didn't score until match day 6, which shows, I guess, how disappointing the start of the season was from Arsenal in terms of their start under Jonas Eindval, and just how impressive they've been under Renee Segers as well. Again, noting importance in terms of goal scoring, Russo scored against 7 out of the 11 of the opponents she faced this season. And I mean, I've spoken a lot over the course of the season on the pod about how impressed I've been with Arsenal's goal scoring. They've been so impressive, very free-flowing, especially at home when they've scored. I think, Sam, we spoke about it when we were at the Arsenal United game. They've scored like 4 goals in their last at least 4 goals in their last 7 home games.
They've scored at least 4 goals in every home game in the WSL in 2025.
Yeah, it's on a crazy stat. And Russo's a big part of that. But I think the quality of strikers this year, or number 9s this year in the WSL, has been very impressive to see.
Yeah, I think it's been really good. And I think I haven't looked at it for a while. I think I looked at it about Christmas time, but the number of goals scored compared to the XG accumulated this season at Christmas was more. So players were scoring more than their XG would assume, like teams were in total. And I would imagine it's continued throughout the rest of the season, because I think compared to an average league, I think the strikers in the WSL are better than the goalkeepers. And not just the strikers, the midfielders and the wingers and stuff like that as well. But that has contributed to a lot of goals. And the person I've put in scored the most goals in the season, alongside Alessia Russo. Both of them got 12. Mine is Bunny Shaw. Bunny Shaw, I think people haven't put her, or some people haven't put her in the team because she didn't play that much. But I think that's part of the reason to put her in. She only played 891 minutes, so just less than 10 games worth over a 22-game season. Obviously, that's not that much, and injuries and stuff, you can't really help that. But she's still the top scorer in the league. She didn't even play half the minutes. That's so impressive, I think. And a lot of those were really important goals as well. It's not quite the same as, because I considered putting Shakira Martinez in. I think she to start with was the player that I had in, And then I sort of clocked things like she scored 4 of her 10 goals against Crystal Palace in a 7-1 win. If she doesn't score those goals, West Ham still win that game. She's scoring
I
a lot of goals, but she's not necessarily winning the match with goals.
I did the exact same thing for the exact same reason. Martinez was in my initial draft, and then I was just like, I'm doing a team of the season. I mean, like she joined halfway. Like it just felt weird putting a player that had only played half the season and not been there for the first half of the season in team of the season, which is why I went for Russo.
Yeah, which I think makes sense. But yeah, Bunny Shaw's mine. I know she obviously, as well as scoring the most goals, she obviously, well, not obviously, but unsurprisingly, got the most goals per 90 in the league. She got 1.21 goals per 90. So she's scoring a goal. I should have worked this out beforehand, but about every 70 minutes, maybe. But it works out if she played every minute this season, she'd have scored 27 goals, which is obviously more than double anyone else. And even more than she scored last season. She scored 21. Obviously, played a lot more last season as well. But yeah, the most goal involvements per 90 as well. She scored, well, obviously, she scored the most goals. She did that without taking a penalty, which I think is quite impressive. And yeah, any of like the attacking metrics that you flick through, so you look at shots taken, shots on target, XG over performance was plus 3.7. That's really high. Shot creating action, she's in the top 10. Goal creating action, she's in the top 5. Successful take-ons, she's up there. She just did really well in a lot of different attacking metrics, despite the fact she didn't even play 10 games worth of minutes. So I think even though she didn't play that much, she would have had such an impact if she was fit all season. And I think Man City would have finished in the Champions League, in the Champions League places, maybe even second if she was fit all season. But I still think she deserves my spot as the number 9. So yeah, there are our team of the seasons. Hopefully, if I've got the video working, listener, you can see them beside us.
Now,
But I'll put a little.
I did
Go
have
on.
one more question. This is
I'll go for it.
slightly putting you on the spot a bit, but I feel like to round off the team, who is your manager of the season?
Who is the manager of season? You are right in that you're putting me on the spot a little bit with that. I can't remember who I was listening to the other day. It was another podcast. It might have been actually the Halfway Line, and they brought it up. And I think there's a few that you can really vouch for being a manager of the season. I think that there have been times when you could maybe say that Rhian Skinner was in the conversation, Dario Vidicic was in the conversation, Brian Sorensen was in the conversation, but none of them have quite kept up enough throughout the season for me. You know, Brighton started really well, but have tailed off. West Ham have had a really good spell, but not so consistent enough throughout the whole season, etc. I think for me, it's probably between the top 3 teams. I think Mark Skinner's done really well considering the players that he's got, because he's only used 21 players this season and he's still managed to qualify for the Champions League and obviously an FA Cup final as well. I think Rene Slegers has had such a impact on Arsenal. You think it's not like they were about to get relegated or anything, but they weren't doing well enough under Jonas. She came in and really turned it around. They went on a big win streak. Alessia Russo started scoring after not scoring beforehand. So I think Rene Slegers has a shout. But I think mine would go to Sonia Bonpastor because she's done something that no other manager has done and won the league by 12 goals. And she's done that in her first season. She's brought a few players in, don't get me wrong. The club have backed her as well. They've signed players like Naomi Girma. I imagine even some of the players that they haven't paid as much money for, they've still backed her enough to pay the wages and things like that, and given her a really good squad. But she's also managed it really well. You don't really see, or I haven't seen anyway, much in the way of players being unhappy at Chelsea at their game time or not getting on with the manager, things like that. It's just if you see anything around Chelsea, or if you go to Stamford Bridge, if you see videos that the players are in, whether that's like from the club or from the players themselves or from fans that put online, everyone seems in a good mood all the time, which happens when you're winning and happens when your manager manages you well. So yeah, I think Sonia Bonpastor would be mine.
Yeah, I think it's hard to see past Sonia Bonpastor. I think there have been a lot of managers that have been really impressive this season, but obviously it's so hot. It was so hard kind of taking over from Emma Hayes and kind of following on from her legacy. And Sonia Bonpastor has done it unbelievably. I mean, an unbeaten season. Obviously, this isn't WSL, but like winning both of the domestic cups. Um, she's not only kind of got the achievements, but she's almost done like the superlative of the achievement. She's got the unbeaten run and got the domestic treble. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. To be fair, I think Renee Slavers has been unbelievable since she came in at Arsenal. I think there's an argument to say if she was in charge at the start of the season, Arsenal could have been very worthy challengers to Chelsea at the top of the table. Mark Skinner, I think, has been unbelievable. What he's done with United. Although they didn't look great for most of the season, I think Natalia Arroyo at Villa, especially with the way they ended the season, has got to be up there as well. And for Villa to finish sixth after being in a potential relegation battle in March is just so impressive. And that run of 5 wins to end the season is just can't be understated. And again, Ryan Skinner as well. I think it's weird how almost like league position like affects your mindset, because I think like 2 games before the end of the season you probably would have put Ryan Skinner very much in the conversation, but then 2 losses in 2 put them 9th in the league and it suddenly doesn't look as good. I think Dario Vidicic would have been up there as well if Brighton had sustained their first half of the season performance. I think it's so hard to look past Sonia Bonpastor.
Yeah, I think we're both picking the same manager as well as 7 or 8 of the players in the team. But yeah, I'll put a poll out as well when we put this out to see who the listeners think who has picked the best team. Obviously, they are quite similar, but there's a few differences which will at least spark a bit of conversation. And I'm sure there will be people who disagree with both of us and think that people like Elizabeth Turland or Sarah Holmgard or someone like that would be in. But yeah, I think that's about us for today. It's been a really good episode. I think this is the first sort of team of the season. Obviously, this is the end of the first Decoding the WSL season. So, let us know your thoughts, listener. Let us know who you think we should have put in, if there's someone that you disagree with. Or if you just agree with us and think we're perfect, tell us that as well, because that's always nice to hear. But thank you very much for coming on, Jacob. Thank you very much for fielding your team as well.
No, thank you for having me. That was probably the least conflicting team of the season team of the season debate I've ever had with anyone. It seemed like we were in agreement with a lot. But thank you very much for listening, everyone.
Yeah, and we will speak to you in the next one.
Cheers.